Well, hello everyone. I'm back in the gym, aka this room in my house, and I like to spend a lot of time in because it's bright and it's sunny. Athena likes spending time here too. Right now I'm just about to apply some of this serum in my hair. Athena really wants to lie down here. Here, lie down. Lie down. Okay, there you go. And yeah, you know, working from home, chilling from home, playing from home, thinking from home, despairing from home. Over the holidays, I watched this movie called Groundhog Day, and that's what my life kind of feels like right now. You know, you wake up, the same song is playing, and you're kind of just like, I don't want to be in this town anymore. I want to go home. Instead of going home, like, I want to go on vacation. I want to go literally anywhere else than where I am right now. I love my home so much, but like, it's called home base for a reason. Let's just say that. Home base is not the same as what essentially feels like a prison. How do you feel? Do you just love being at home all the time? I usually do. It's uncharacteristic for me to not want to be at home. So here we go. I got this guy right here, and I'm putting some in my hair, and then I'm gonna braid it. So I'm just gonna start up here. So the reason why I bring up the like despair aspect of this whole lockdown situation that's going on in Ontario and many other places, because I think when something begins to bother you, it's so much more magnified and hard to avoid when those thoughts you're having that bother you are associated with the same visual stimulus of literally every and anything else, because you're just in one place all the time. So I find it's easier to get like just in a bad way mentally, and I don't like it. I don't like that one bit. I've spent a lot of my life trying to overcome some experiences and ways of thinking and stuff like that, and you know, you think you have it all down, but then life throws a new curveball at you that you never could have expected. And we're all going through that right now. I know it's not just me. I love my life is good, but it's not all good. And if yours is all good, please tell me what you're doing, because I want what you're having. And I don't think I have it in my pantry right now. I said to you guys before that the back of my head is kind of the worst and driest spot that I have. So pretty much applied everything that I need to apply, and I'm just massaging it into my scalp. And usually I do this at night, but I was tired last night, so I went to sleep and I didn't do it. Sue me. Me to me, literally, no one else cares. I try to stick to the guidelines that I set out to myself as best as possible, but this is what the 80-20 rule was invented for. I think it's like a natural rhythm to fuck up roughly 20% of the time, even when you're really trying. So I'm okay with that. It just feels so good to massage the scalp. Now, I think depending on who you are and the experiences that you've been through from childhood or otherwise really determines how many sort of triggers that we have that put our nervous system into a less than favorable condition. There's research from many people who work in the neuro field who are working on sort of the application of neuroscience and storage of trauma and emotion, that an unresolved trigger will continue to trigger you until you've had a way to release it. Not only from your mental grappling, but also from your body. It's like you need to take some kind of action. So all that to say, some people are gonna have a lot more frequency of occurrence of triggers, of emotional triggers, than other people are. And I use the term emotional, which is, emotions are very physical, they're chemical, and they're of the nervous system. It's not just like petty concepts, you know? A lot of people like to downplay emotions. Emotions are teachers, and you know, a lot of people don't like teachers, so there's that, but they're still teachers nonetheless. If you're dealing with a lot of emotional triggers because of your circumstances, not limited to this whole global situation, you are, I know this sounds so negative, but you're inherently at a disadvantage because, you know, something that is not even associated as a threat, if you were to look at it objectively, it can pose a threat to the nervous system. And then all of a sudden you know, even with your growth, even with whatever, you're right back into some pattern that you haven't been able to liberate from your nervous system yet. And so you're back in your fight, flight, freeze, fawn, befriend response, like however you choose to deal with stress. You're in that stress though, because you're perceiving on a very subtle level threat. So the more kind of trauma that you've been through, I guess the more likely it is to re-traumatize, and on like a much more subtle level, the more likely you are to just get thrown off or distracted by negative bullshit, or even something that is seemingly irrelevant to anyone else. So that sucks. And that's why it's really important to identify when you are being triggered and to do something about it. You know, if it's someone in your life doing something innocently, or maybe not innocently, if they're around enough, you gotta let them know, and hopefully they can become more sensitive to you. You gotta take some kind of action. There's a podcast I was listening to a little while ago from ATP Project by ATP Science, and it was with Ken Ware and another, I think he's called like a neurophysicist or something like that, neurophysics. And the way that they treat people's emotional triggers that are basically not being dealt with properly is by taking them through traumatic experiences. And it can be done without actually having to talk about it. It's not talk therapy. It's more about putting yourself mentally back into that state and then having them literally move through it. So, you know, you could be thinking of a trauma, thinking of an experience that you went through that you know is still putting a damper on your life to this day. And, you know, mentally, I think he used the word flow. He was saying basically like, I want you to take me through and explain to me what happened, but don't actually tell me what happened, just use the word flow. So in the patient's mind, they're going through the experience and they're using the word flow as a placeholder for the actual honest raw words, because that practitioner doesn't need to know what the patient went through in order for it to be effective. So she says flow, or he says flow, 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 as they go through that experience in their mind, and they're walking, or, you know, they're doing something active, because a lot of these unresolved triggers have to do with the fact that you may not have been able to move or to act when the initial thing happened to you. You know, maybe you were a kid, maybe you weren't allowed to move, maybe you weren't allowed to talk or fight back, or, you know, whatever the case is, stand up for yourself. Maybe you weren't allowed to do those things. So you are locked into an unresolved situation where, like, your deep biology needs you to do something about it, because that's how you survive. And then instead we redirect our attention and distract ourselves and all that kind of stuff, and never truly give ourselves a chance to fight. Turns out your body needs that chance to fight. So if you're going through a hard time in the pandemic and you're prone to re-traumatizing or triggers, or, you know, just generally not having a good time, because unfortunately you might be just naturally disadvantaged in some way in that regard, it's important to get moving. It's important to move your body and to speak up for yourself and to find really functional ways to deal with the manifestations of your experiences and your anxieties or whatever sort of thing that you're going through, because if you're able to do that, you'll be able to function a lot better. You know, I'm no neurophysicist, but you know, I can kind of take the teachings from that and boil it down into a talking point, if you will. And the talking point is that it's okay and it's not abnormal that you're going through a hard time right now. If you are going through a hard time, that's real. There's no denying that that's what's happening, and it's largely happening to almost everyone who is unable to live their life with their freedoms that allow them to feel empowered and individual and not like they're being suppressed. You know, regardless of why it's happening, it's still just a freaking bummer. But it sucks. So yeah, you might notice it's hard to move, especially if you're in a kind of like that quadruple F matrix, which is formerly known as the fight or flight response. It's hard to get moving, or it's hard to stand up for yourself, or it's hard to do the things that you need to do in order to feel like a liberated human being, or even just to like take back your own mental space. Because when you're in that quadruple F matrix, formerly known as the fight or flight response, mentally, you're not going to be necessarily in that like inspired place where you're just a savant of the arts, or you can focus on your creative writing or like whatever. You know, you're not going to be there. You're going to be trying to solve the issue and maybe peripherally looking for more threats. It's a distraction from the things that you truly love doing that are good for you, that make you feel healthy and vibrant as a human being. So it's important to know that when you get triggered, it's valid, and you're not just going to be able to shake it off. You can't just be like, oh, well, whoa, that sucked, and now I'm just gonna like just force myself into submission and just like suplex my brain back into writing about whatever. It doesn't work like that. And if you're able to do that, just know that you are extremely mentally strong. It's not easy to do. But yeah. If you're stressed, you have to do something about it. So I know this is such basic advice, but sometimes the simple answer is the right one. Go for a walk. Walk around, do some stretching, do some yoga, something like that, you know, like just get your body moving, and perhaps try to see if you can get it out of your body. Like if you're feeling that stress, maybe this really primal part of yourself needs you to do something a little physically drastic. So maybe you jump, or maybe you, I don't know, maybe you slam your hands on the floor or something. Get it out of your body. It's not abnormal to do something like that. Get a skipping rope, I don't know. And be gentle with yourself. My memory card was full. Be gentle with yourself, because there will be a point, and this can happen regardless of who you are, where you can go from feeling good in the movement that you're doing or what you're doing and pushing to the point of your body wanting to push back at you. And especially if you're going through a stressful time, if your body starts pushing back at you, that is a sign that you want to listen to, because ultimately your body is kind of begging you to just listen. So move and find ways of moving that don't stress you out. But at the same time, like, if it feels right, it's okay to do something a little more ballistic in order to just try to get yourself truly into that fight or flight where you are moving and you are doing something that signals that you have autonomy and you're doing something about the stress, you know? Yeah. And that's like, it's a concept that bleeds into conditioning as well. I think if you're not conditioned physically with your metabolic conditioning, muscular mass, etc., there's this craving to push yourself because you feel like you have to. There's like all of these kind of crazy ideas surrounding exercise about like basically punishing yourself. Oh my gosh, this lighting is starting to get kind of terrible. Any better? Okay, let's try that out. Yeah, and ultimately that creates a cycle of teaching yourself not to listen to your body and to trying to force yourself into more submission, and that can actually cause way more harm than good in so many ways. Like if you think back to high school, there's always someone who has a story about how like the gym teacher just made them do whatever, and it ultimately put them in a mental state where they decided like, I hate exercising. There's a reason why they made that association. There's a reason why they made the decision to hate exercise, you know, if you could even call it a decision. I don't think you really can because it wasn't a choice, but that association it goes far deeper than just, oh, I have this negative memory. Those stresses start to come back up as soon as you start trying to exercise again, and that causes literal stress in the body. So condition yourself gradually, undulating periodization as we program as personal trainers. It's basically where like you're on a trajectory that looks like this to give yourself space for metabolic adaptations, and it includes rest. Those concepts are all really, really important if you want to have longevity as someone who's active. Your foundation is just as much psychological as it is just physical, you know? If you're starting to just work out again, maybe boot camps work for you, because there's something out there for everyone, and everyone is going to require something a little different. But if you generally relate working out to stress of any kind, you should just go really easy on yourself and start to learn about your body and how it feels and what feels good, what doesn't feel good, before you start going into these kind of torturous territories. So yeah. Well, I've applied the serum to my hair, and now I'm ready to work out or whatever. And for me personally, I'm gonna make sure it's something that feels good for my body and I'm not ignoring those signals, because yeah, the reason why this talk ended up the way that it did today is because I'm trying to handle stuff and put myself back into a more productive and more self-honoring place as frequently as I possibly can, because unfortunately I am easily distracted. So if you are also easily distracted, hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight onto exactly what might be happening within you on a different level, and that there is stuff that you can do about it, and in fact there are things that you need to do about it. So yeah, I mean, praise the hair gods. Let's see if this this stuff keeps on feeding my scalp. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.